Hello, Barney. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. How you doing?
Very good.
Very
Thank you
good.
for joining us.
No worries. Happy to be here.
We are thrilled to have you. There's so much that we want to get into, that we want to chat about and discuss. I thought first off, tell us a bit about Cleo 3.0.
Yeah, we launched a few weeks ago.
It's essentially Cleo is an AI assistant that helps you with your money. So it's think of it like ChatGPT for your finances. And 3.0 was our big push into reasoning. So that's been the big seismic shift in the industry over the last kind of 6 months. And reasoning allows us to call more and more tools at Cleo. So Cleo gets smarter and smarter. So we've extended thinking time, we've extended tool use, and it's having a massive effect. We're only a week in, but we're seeing a couple of dollars in LTV, retention's up, conversions up, active users are up. So it's been fun.
And what role, I think you tweeted about this, but what role has GPT-5 played?
It's a big unlock. GPT-5 already came out last week, so it's in testing now with us. But if you compare it to O3, it's already a huge difference. So if we look at our evals and we look at what we're doing with human annotation and LM as a judge, it's moved accuracy up meaningfully, 10 percentage points on there. And if you're just using it, O3 versus 5 thinking, like you can see there's a big level up. The thing I always do is I go back to my old conversations and I look, what was I saying 6 months ago in these threads? And then I try the new model versus, and you're like, this is clearly like way, way better.
Yeah. Yeah, you said that LTV is just increased by $2 to $3 with no extra effort, which is pretty crazy. Literally, just a launch of some new, some new model of GPT. It is really exciting for you guys to grow the business. I mean, you're now at 280 million ARR and probably growing pretty quickly. You said, 500 million is cooling. Like, how fast are you growing? Like, give us an update on that.
Yeah, so we're growing up 2x year on year. We're profitable and above that 250 million ARR mark. So it's a fairly big business now, and I'd like it to be bigger. But we're growing very, very quickly at the moment. 500 million, the context is like you can IPO and not be a sub-scale company. So 500 is the median consumer go-to-market for an IPO over the last 5 years, 10 years. So once we hit that mark, like the IPO market opens for us and we could list if we want. Then there's the debate. You wait longer and go out when you're slightly bigger size and you get more analyst coverage and a bit more liquidity. So we're kind of scaling. We're thinking about that over the next year or two as we will continue to grow 2x, and we'll be there very shortly.
Yeah, that's exciting. And the Figma IPO, is that what has that kind of opened up for you in terms of your thoughts on potential IPOing and things like that?
The market's been amazing, not just Figma, but if you look at Chime's reception, you look at eToro, you look at Circle, there's been so many positive news stories at the moment. I've got my S&P 500 portfolio and it's doing pretty well, actually, even since the from tariffs. So I think the window is opening, interest rates are coming down, markets are coming back up. I think everyone, at least in the US, is just wildly excited about AI. It's fundamentally changing the world. It's changing the world in front of us every minute of every day. You think about all the model launches that happen continuously. There's going to be more interesting companies built over this next decade than ever in history. It's only going to grow exponentially. And then it means that the countries and the states and the companies that can capture that wealth and hopefully do good stuff with it, it's going to really change the world. So it's a good time to be building an AI assistant, I guess.
Very cool. Yeah, and you've been in AI since long before it was cool or fashionable or the hype. I wanted to talk about some of that growth that you mentioned, doubling year on year. You're looking forward to an IPO when you kind of at some point, whether it's 500 million or later. Are you definitely at the end of your fundraising journey, or are you thinking maybe we could do another fundraise to really propel our growth? Or you're thinking now we're profitable, we're still growing steady, let's just wait for the IPO?
We'll definitely do one or two more rounds before the IPO. You want to always give your employees liquidity and options to liquidity throughout the journey. So you're making sure that happens for people. And that's important to keep the staff base motivated and all this kind of stuff. But importantly, it allows us to double down on talent. So you've probably seen the machine learning engineer salaries. That maybe my machine learning engineers are curiosity this, but the market is kind of crazy at the moment, and we need to hire lots. And you think about every single task you previously did with machine learning, and we had the hundreds and hundreds of classifiers at Cleo. Every single moment like that changes with LLMs. Like every single classifier you had gets changed, augmented. General software development is just radically changing. And there's all these ideas and all these opportunities to deploy LLMs at scale, which are just accreted in value to the company. So building the staff base is important to us, and continuing that growth and investing in growth is important. We've got a 4-month payback period for context. So we should be deploying more capital into marketing and grow even faster than 2x. Maybe being a bit too British, being so conservative and being profitable at this stage. So let's deploy a little bit more. And it allows us just to continue to innovate, continue to launch new products. Like as you get to the scale we're at, you want to have, just like Revolut, have multiple product lines. So we've launched a lot over the last couple of years. We've really diversified our revenue, but there's so much more that we can tap into. I think we have probably there's only a couple of companies in Europe that have a real opportunity of building $1 trillion company founded in the UK, act in Europe. I think Cleo is one of those companies, maybe not, maybe the company, and more capital just allows us to continue to invest in that growth.
Yeah, you mentioned liquidity, and at some point, are you looking at doing secondaries?
We will do another primary round in the next year or so. So markets are good, our numbers are really good, and then I get an obnoxious amount of inbound from VCs at the moment. So, but now it's probably a good time to pull the trigger on the round. There'll be some during that, I'm sure, but main primary is few and growth.
Amazing. And we want to get into a lot about your views on tech across the ecosystem, across Europe versus US. You're in a really unique position, having been building in the UK, but primarily selling and, almost exclusively for a number of years now, your product being in the US. What's that experience been like, building in the UK, but serving the US market?
I think it would be way harder pre-COVID. I think the world has fundamentally changed. Like the ability to hire and work with staff globally has, can you imagine pre-COVID, trying to get on a red eye, go to your San Francisco office, talk to the team, come back, no one did Zoom. It wasn't natural. Now every meeting is over Zoom. So the world has fundamentally changed, which means that European and global companies can compete. And if you're building a consumer company, especially, UBB2B, you are pathetic if you are not launching in the US first. If you're building in the UK just for the UK, you don't have the right level of ambition to take venture dollars, and you shouldn't be a founder. So if you're not trying to dominate in the US and you're trying to take easy markets, you're going to get steamrolled. There's no way that you're going to be a competitive company in 5 to 10 years. So, and then my big push for founders is you have to win in the US, and we have to win there quickly. Cleo is definitely not won yet. There's a long way to go until we are the dominant finance platform and in that continent, but also globally. So it's a great time to do it, basically. You can found a business anywhere and you can scale it globally from day one. You should try and do that. And if you're not doing that, go work at Cleo. Dana, try and climb the company.
And you mentioned the US market being huge, there's more to capture there. Are you still double downing, focusing solely on that, or are you thinking about expanding back to Europe or to other markets?
Yeah, we've got an international pillar now, so we're coming back to the UK. Canada's coming back. There's some LATAM countries that we're coming back to. So we're full in international expansion. We don't necessarily need to, because there's a lot of headroom still. Yeah, we're only 250 million plus ARR in the US. There's a lot of headroom in the US, but we want to be a globally dominant company. We want 1 billion users using Cleo, and there's not 1 billion people in the United States. So you have to go global at some point.
Have you got timelines for that?
Ask my PMs. I'm pushing them for as soon as possible. But hopefully soon. Hopefully you'll see us here in next 6 months or so.
Amazing.
Awesome. What about the new launches? You mentioned that you've got a ton of launches kind of coming up. Can you give us any sneak peeks of anything coming up down the tracks?
I'll get in trouble for that. But the thing to be a lot about at Cleo is just autonomous finance. If you think about when you come into the product, we try and get your goal. So maybe that's trying to nudge, I see you 20-somethings in London, what your goal is. Maybe it's a 10 million house in Belgravia or something when you got your venture fund and you've done something. So I'm not sure where else we can anyway, back to autonomous finance. Like you come into Cleo and we asked you, where do you want to achieve? Where do you want to get to? Is it house out of debt? Is it retiring early? Whatever it is. And then our goal as the AI assistant is every day have a plan for you that gets you towards that goal. Some days you'll completely mess it up and you've gone backwards on that goal. Some days you'll go ahead of it. But we're there to try and get you from point A to point B over a multi-year horizon, have the agents working autonomously in the background for you. So you can think of Cleo as autonomous finance. It's self-driving money. It's a way that you don't have to worry and stress about your money. Everything is taken care of for you. So I think that's the big thing in these major domains of your life, whether it's education, health, finance. You'll have multiple agents that work for you on your behalf, just constantly reasoning about your situation, about your data, and making informed decisions and taking actions on your behalf. And that is a 10x product versus maybe a prettier card or an incrementally better banking app or something like that. And that's a really powerful product.
We talked to Justin Bassini, and he was basically saying that the amount of, I think it was Justin Bassini, he was saying the amount of open banking data that they're using. Was it Justin? Yeah. And just the amount that goes into, credit now and kind of using all that data and kind of what you're purchasing, how you're living life kind of financially. How much data are you guys using then? Because that's obviously like a huge kind of growth hack for you guys and increases your kind of experience, like customer experience. So when you're increasing the amount of agentic kind of workflows that are happening behind the scenes, just understanding, the person that's using the Cleo kind of service, how much open banking data is going into that?
It's trillions of transactions now, but I always talk about these bastions of data that are valuable to companies but consumers as well. So think of Google and search. If I went through all of your search histories, I would learn a lot about you guys. But it's an incredibly powerful set of data that Google's going to be able to utilize. And actually, European regulation means that it's going to be open to everyone. You also get social data. So if you're Instagram or your Facebook, that network of friends and connections, and so much about the consumer just from that. If you think about banking data and you think about transactional data, it's actually much more interesting than both search and social data. And it's much more usable by an AI. So if I look at your banking histories or if anyone's, you can tell who that person is, where they live, the personality, where they shop, their income, where they're going in life. There's just so much that AI can glean from that data, which makes it incredibly powerful. So again, it's these big moments of your life where you create data autonomously, like health, I've got a loop on, I've got all these sensors on, I'm creating data. It's beautiful for an LLM. Finance is a beautiful vector for LLMs. And I think you'll have these very vertical specific AIs that'll do very important things, but they'll importantly plug into those ecosystems and provide products and services and monetize. That's a large language model provider like OpenAI is not going to be that deep in that vertical. So, the data is amazing. It's truly fantastic.
That sounds amazing. I can't wait to see what that product will look like in real life. Every time I talk about Cleo on LinkedIn, there's always someone who comments being like, hey, I can't find this on the App Store. Why can't I download it? Because of you're not in the UK. So it's going to be amazing. I can't personally wait to kind of be able to use it in action. I think I agree. I had it years ago when it was available in the UK. So it's going to be great to have it back and upgraded. I want to pivot slightly. One of the things I love reading about, following you on X on LinkedIn, is you are a very vocal proponent of the UK, the European ecosystem. We touched briefly on the IPO. You teased London versus the US IPO. From the outside looking in, it feels like for you and for Cleo, the US IPO would be the obvious thing to do, given that's where your audience is, that's where you're making your money, that's where the product lives. What would need to change to get you to consider a London IPO?
It's a really good question. I think there's so much that can be done quite easily and cost effectively by the government, which is the thing that really irks me about this. A little bit of a setup to this. If you look at all of European tech, all the wealth created by it is being captured by foreign and mainly US individuals and companies. If you look at all the investment that goes into UK tech, the vast majority is not from British capital. Actually, nearly none of it is from British capital. If you look at all the employees, actually, we're not creating enough computer scientists and machine learning engineers. So say I'm a Cleo or Revolut, I'm having to hire outside of the UK And so therefore the employees are not going to pay tax in that jurisdiction. The founders are all leaving for America, or if you will nick it, Revolut, you're going to Dubai or wherever it is, as you go in Exodus there. And then at the IPO market, because of all of these stupid policy decisions we've made over the last 20 years, there's not one single publicly listed UK tech company. I don't know why it's still on there, right? It's not going to be on there. That was our only $10 billion plus tech company on there today. So we've got this massive wealth exodus of the most important and growing parts of our economy. And if you're going to solve stagnation and productivity, I would go all in on building giant tech companies, because that's the most productive companies in the world. They're the ones growing the fastest. That is where the economy is growing. So it's crazy to me that we're doing things that push UK founders out of the country. Wealth tax, capital gains tax, stamp duty, full listing rules, so you can't have dual class shares in the UK. Public pension plots and ISA is not going into public equities and into venture. It's just absolutely criminal. So there's like 5 or 6 things across the tax, across the rules, across the education system, and you could do 5 or 6 of those things, then you could dramatically turn around the exodus of capital, and you get way more liquidity into the market. Labour are doing some things like Mansion House reforms are good, but they're just so slow, and they're actually just kind of doing the minimum, right? They're catching up with Canada and Australia. Like, they're not even beating them on the percentage that will go into private markets or into our public listing. So I don't know, Barney for PM, and let me turn around all of this silliness that's happening at the moment. But yeah, like, I think we should probably like collectively petition the government for some things at the next budget. I think there's some clear, easy wins that would turn UK tech around. And hopefully if like there's a big enough groundswell from the tech community, I think we could get them to do some positive things and move the UK back in a positive direction.
Yeah.
We're behind it.
Yeah, it definitely feels like
Yeah, and then we decided.
you are now step live on the show. You know, I actually had a question. One of my questions was, if you were PM tomorrow, what was the one thing that you'd change?
Yeah, lots of things. But
And that's amazing. And what's your view, looking broader in the UK, about the European ecosystem? What do you think needs to change more broadly around European tech to take that to the next level?
it's all the same things that happen in Europe. Is that like the UK has stagnated more than a lot of our European counterparts, but they are all in decline actually, and like some of them worse off than the UK. So all of Europe is in a stagnation moment. The economies are not growing. There's no productive assets. If you look at all the companies that make up the big listed public companies and all the stock markets, their banking, their gas, their oil, their they're big legacy industries that are declining in revenue. If you're declining in revenue, you're not growing. Their core productivity is not growing. You're not paying more taxes, et cetera, et cetera. So we need to build tech companies. We need to build trillion-dollar publicly listed tech companies, and we need to capture all of that wealth that is created from those companies. And it would be much better than the European system than it would fit the US. In the US, there's barely any kind of redistribution of wealth at all. So the top 10% takes most of the gains, but the wide economy does boom because of productivity. In Europe, it would be redistributed a lot more, but there's such a risk aversion to doing anything pro-growth, pro-ambition in the European collective that we're going to have the stagnation for another 10, 20 years. And you'll see more populist governments like Reform and others that will come to power. And I don't think that's good for society. So yeah, we do need to make some big changes in the world, and we do need to get some publicly listed companies. And cross bonfire, good win for Europe. But you need about 10 times more bonfires. You need bigger bonfires as well.
Yeah, the two things I want to touch on there. I saw a graph from the FT which had the S&P growth, the S&P 500 growth, stripping away the big top 10 tech giants, and there'd be like no growth at all. It's like
2022. Right?
Yeah, like stagnation that was completely comparable to the European growth. So it's like the only growth engine that even we talk about American exceptionalism is just tech. You don't have tech, you have nothing. And American tech is nothing.
Nvidia, I think I saw something like a day or two ago. Nvidia was, I think it accounts for the most, like the highest percentage of any single company ever in the world.
Oh yeah,
of the whole market, and it's something like
it was like 8%. It was like 8% of the S&P is Nvidia, and it was the highest percentage,
which is insane.
I just wanted to, if we've got 1 or 2 more minutes, you talked briefly about reform. Like, you're someone who's obviously very finger on the pulse of UK politics. What kind of direction do you see UK politics going in?
Not a good one. Reform are, they're odds on, right? Reform are the betting market favourites. They're the pollsters' favourites. They are the high probability to be the next government of the United Kingdom. The thing that's quite scary about that at the moment, and there's rhetoric to change it, but it's completely a vibes operation. There's no policy depth at all to reform. Like, the policy is like stop the boats and like these vague arguments of how you stop the boats from repealing like European Human Convention rights, and none of it is like pro-growth or going to help the economy turn around. So reform either need to get very smart people into reform and have real policy depth and have good things to change. Otherwise, you'll bring in a bunch of populists who, it's kind of like a dog catching the bus when it's like chasing the bus. After a while, it wouldn't know what to do with the bus when it got to the buses. That is what is going on in the UK politics today. But you do have another 3 or 4 years of Labour, and that is a massive amount of time where they could do some huge turnarounds and a long public good. So if Labour can actually deliver upon some of the initiatives they set out, if Labour can actually turn around the tech sector, if Labour can actually get some semblance of growth, then I think you turn around the electorate as well, and you can probably have another, you can have multiple terms of a Labour government, which could bring consistency, stability, with good policy making. Like, Labour are clearly by far the most centrist, smartest party in the country. So we should all be backing them, and we should all be hoping that they are successful. It's not good for us at the moment if Reform get into power with a lack of policy. So we've got to help Labour win. We've got to help Labour actually do some good stuff. But they've got to do some good stuff, right? Like, they can't do what they've been doing. Otherwise, it's continued Reform dominance, and that's worrying for all of us.
Yeah, no, amazing. Thank you so much, Barney. We're out of time. We love chatting to you. Thank you so much for coming on.